The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I heard earlier today that it's been a long day. It's been a good long day. Good long day. And actually, my my comments may in fact be maybe very brief, Madam Speaker. Relatively speaking, Madam Speaker, I rise on behalf of the good people of St. Barnabas, who, like the good people of Bamboo Town, seems to have been passed over in this first cleanup campaign. And it's good to know that the honorable member for Golden Isles has said that every constituency would be touched. But again, I know that St. Barnabas and Bamboo Town is left out in this first round, and particularly for St. Barnabas, I note that I think it's Centerville and Angliston, which is right on the border of St. Barnabas. Just interesting, very interesting. But, be it as it may, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, to be honest, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, to be very honest, right, I pride myself for not being naive, so I'm willing to take a blow, even though it's the people of St. Barnabas that are going to be affected. But I'm quite shocked that Bamboo Town, the Speaker's constituency, just got passed over just like that. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. That's a topic for another day. That's a topic. No. Angliston was treated well. No, Angliston was treated well. I said that to Angliston.
Every time we say Davis Cooper, Angliston takes Cooper off, so you should behave yourself.
Madam Speaker, I rise with a constant sense of great pride, as I said, as the Member of Parliament for St. Barnabas, serving my second term. I'm constantly reminded that it's an honor to even serve one term in this honorable place, and many thousands have attempted to become an elected Member of Parliament. So every day I remind myself, as I'm sure members present and other members of the House remind themselves, that it's indeed a great privilege to be sitting in here to represent the people. And while I'm on my feet initially, Madam Speaker, I wish to tell my wife, Nia, my wife of 347 days now, Madam Speaker, happy birthday. Her birthday was yesterday. And I thank her for her constant support. Yes, thank her for her constant support. And it's one thing that besides other things, it's one thing that my wife has taught me, is that, you got to learn to forgive. And so I want to, she's really taught me how you have to learn to forgive, especially in politics. So I've embraced that, and I want to thank her. I want to thank her for that. Forgiveness is a hard thing, I want to thank her.
We forgive you all. We forgive you all.
Right. But Madam Speaker, this morning we started off with what I'm sure every member contends was something very profound, very profound. And as we constantly deal with the back and forth and the bantering and the jostling here, yes, on disagreements or a difference in policy how we might see it, what we saw exercised here this morning, Madam Speaker, is something that generations of Bahamians after us ought to be proud of. It was a moment where we came together, all of us as Bahamians, to recognize the contributions and the efforts of the women of our country, including yourself and all of the other women, as I've said, who continue to illuminate the corridors of Bahamian history. I see that the member for Angliston has left, but as the morning went on, I'm glad that the member of Elizabeth did in fact note it, that the member for Angliston is now the longest serving female member of parliament in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And and my good family from Pompey Bay, despite our disagreements, but I hear how you treat some of your family, but I ain't saying nothing, right? But truly, I mean, we know how. Y'all cheating babu bad. Cheating babu bad.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Angliston isn't over here. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. As I was saying, just to button up my last point, that the member for Angliston really deserves to be commended. It is difficult to get reelected in Bahamian politics, but to serve for that length of time, not many can say that, particularly a woman of her stature. So congratulations to her, and I'm sure that the history books of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas will be kind to the honorable member whenever she decides to retire from frontline politics. She retire? Mr. Deputy, this conversation about mental health, and I know again we've had a number of inferences and comments about relevance about mental health and what is it that we're talking about here. But the truth is, Mr. Deputy, that while we look at this mental health bill, which in some form addresses some of the preventative things, there are some large-scale issues in our country, large-scale issues, that also can be sourced as some of the contributors to diminishing mental health, Mr. Deputy. And so, as I talk about some of these issues that continue to provide much anxiety for the Bahamian people, much anxiety and despair, I want the Bahamian people to know that at the end of the day, all aspects of government matters, even as it relates to mental health. And Mr. Deputy, it's an article here by World Psychiatry, talks about economics and mental health. And it says, Mr. Deputy, economics and mental health are intertwined. Apart from the accumulating evidence of the huge economic impacts of mental ill health and the growing recognition of the effects, economic circumstances can exert heavily on the mental health of a population, right? Economics and mental health. There's another one by the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine, the Global Economic Crisis, Effects on Mental Health and What Can Be Done. World Health Organization, Impact of Economic Crisis on Mental Health, and share. Economic crisis are therefore times of high risk to the mental well-being of the population and of the people affected and their families. Then we have here Science Direct, Social Science and Medicine, the impact of neighborhood crime on mental health. Another one, Nutrients website, understanding the relationship between food security and mental health, Mr. Deputy. Now, I've mentioned these articles just in case members might decide to talk about what is the relevance to some of the things that I'm going to talk about, Mr. Deputy. right? The national landscape, Mr. Deputy, and what our people are feeling and going through impacts the national mental state of our people.
Yes, yes.
People attach their hopes and aspirations, cares and concerns, though not absolutely, on the government and its ability to perform and fulfill its promises. As former Governor General A.D. Hanna said, to wipe the tear from every eye, and Shanendon said to bring peace to every heart. I'm sure. Mr. Deputy, there is much mental anguish across our Bahama land that continues to shake the lives of many Bahamians. The Bahamian people, Mr. Deputy, don't just want prosperity on paper, they want prosperity in their pockets. The government has made things difficult for many Bahamians. They've put that 100% tax on bread basket items, and it's made things more difficult for a lot of Bahamians, Mr. Deputy. As a matter of fact, Mr. Deputy, Mr. Deputy, as a matter of fact, as one of my constituents said to me on this weekend at our soup kitchen, he said, Mr. Deputy, he said, Mr. Cartwright, he said, my problems having problems, all right? Problems having problems, Mr. Deputy. And so, as the government continues to tout what they believe are the many successes, the Bahamian people are out there getting mashed up left, right, and center. And this is how they feel, Mr. Deputy. They promised a war on poverty, Mr. Deputy, but the first shot has not been fired. As many persons, many poor people and marginalized persons every day are trying to, and I'm sure in all of our constituencies we see this where persons don't have food to eat. Food to eat, all right? Food to eat, okay? Mr. Deputy, and so we call upon the government, Mr. Deputy, to do more for the poor people of this country, to do more for the poor people of this country as they deal with the anxiety, right?
Yes.
Right? Right? Mr. Deputy, we also focus on the anxiety of the people of Grand Bahama.
Yes.
The people of Grand Bahama,
Yes.
who are now highly disappointed that this government has failed them in this failed deal that the government refuses to talk about.
Yes. Yes.
Refuses to talk about.
Yes.
The government was bullish. The government, Mr. Deputy, the government was very bullish on this deal for the people of Grand Bahama. And as I stand here, Mr. Deputy, this is not being gleeful in any failed deal, because we are all Bahamians and we want what's best for the people of Grand Bahama.
That's right.
But the truth is on this deal, as the opposition leader said, they overpromised and they underdelivered.
Yes. 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 People living with problems.
Overpromised and Mr. Deputy, they promised that for Grand Bahama, this would be a grand deal. That's the word that was used. They said it would be a grand deal, Mr. Deputy. The point is, no. The government celebrated what they said was a deal. I'm not here celebrating.
That's
The
right.
government celebrated what they said was a deal. So they ain't gonna put that on me, right? And so the people of Grand Bahama right now are dealing with a lot and have been dealing with a lot. And the government has a responsibility for that as it relates to putting this deal out there, right? Putting this deal out there. And if you listen to the government on this, the deal was done.
Done, of course. That's how they represented it. Yep.
Right?
All the set.
Right? Mr. Deputy,
They should have walked gingerly, but unfortunately.
Mr. Deputy, right? As it relates to, I shared the article on crime, Mr. Deputy. We are now at 120 murders in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. No, we're not celebrating. Just as y'all stand up on your feet and talk about the issues of this country, you were once in opposition, and I never said to you that you celebrated. No, we ain't celebrating. There's 120 murders at the end of the day. And if you as a government, and hold on, and if you as a government, Mr. Deputy, protect me, please, Mr. Deputy.
Members.
Thank you. Protect me, Mr. Deputy.
Members.
What amazes me, Mr. Deputy, what amazes me is the government wants all the credit and all the credit for all of the things that are going well, but they want none of the responsibility for what is not going well. That's you don't get to choose. You know, you don't get to choose. You don't get to choose, Mr. Deputy, right? Choose, Mr. Deputy. So there's 120 murders in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And we have been consistently asking on behalf of the Bahamian people, where is the plan? 22 murders in the month of March. 22 murders in the month of March. It's now November. And still, there is no plan, Mr. Deputy. Still, there's no plan.
Investigations, no plan.
And instead of members either choosing to shout insults here and there, it would be good if they would shout some plans. The plans that they have for crime, Mr. Deputy.
See the blueprint.
Mr. Deputy, the anxiety in our country is great. Anxiety in our country is great, as I know my constituents, and I'm sure the constituents of everyone here talks about the increased electricity bills that have been heaped on their back.
Shame.
And of course, we continue to litigate this BPL. We continue to litigate BPL and the fact that the government abandoned the hedging strategy that was in place, and the fact that the government's delay caused an increased burden on the Bahamian people. And that is the reality. How much millions of dollars? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars, Mr. Deputy. Well, Mr. Deputy, I'm trying not to be distracted, but I believe, I wouldn't say I heard for sure, you know, I believe that I heard something to the effect of, they tired of hearing this. The Bahamian people, this is the Bahamian people. So if they are tired of hearing from the Bahamian people, that's on them. And maybe in their constituency, Mr. Deputy, maybe in their constituency, the people aren't hurting. But I know in St. Barnabas and everywhere I go around this island, around the country, the people are talking about how much they are hurting. And again, the Bahamian people don't want prosperity on paper. They want prosperity in their pockets and in their lives.
Yes. Pressure talk.
Pressure talk.
Pressure talk.
Mr. Deputy, the anxiety that the Bahamian people feel is further exacerbated when the Bahamian people see the amount of travel, the travel costs that continues to go up. And I'll say this, you know, Mr. Deputy, we have been consistent in saying we expect the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to travel. Who would be silly enough to say you don't want the Prime Minister to travel on your behalf? What we have said, and what the Bahamian people, Mr. Deputy.
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Deputy, please.
God is not the God of confusion.
We have said, Mr. Deputy, right, that the Bahamian people are concerned about the large delegations. So people are hurting and they see in the increased travel. It isn't a question about the Prime Minister, it's a question about the large delegations. While people are hurting out there, people are pussing out there, all right, it's tight. All right? It's tight, and that's what the people are saying. All right? So it doesn't matter what they have on paper, Mr. Deputy. Right? I saw the other day, and I'm sure everybody saw this, how everybody know I played basketball, and it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart to see, Mr. Deputy, please.
Order, members.
Pressure on them.
Right? It hurt my heart to see that the women's national team
Couldn't get funding.
Couldn't get funding.
My lord.
So you think the Bahamian people aren't looking at that? Huh? Mr. Deputy?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Garden Hills.
Let me let the public know, as I said on talk shows already, the Basketball Federation got funding, more than they could ever ask for. The decision of that senior women team not to travel was an executive decision by the Federation itself.
The money's there, you just can't use it.
Oh, they could use it. When you manage your business, you make a financial decision what you think is in the best interest of your organization. And that's the decision that they made. They felt that they had the money, but they felt that the team wasn't good enough to travel, so they didn't send them. Financing had nothing to do with that.
Thank you, honorable member. Chair recognizes the honorable member
Mr.
for
Deputy.
St. Barnabas.
Mr. Deputy, the member for Garden Hills. Mr. Deputy, please.
Order,
Please,
members,
Mr. Deputy.
members.
Please. When you're not saying something they want to hear, they interrupt you, you know? Please,
Members.
protect me, Mr. Deputy. All right? Protect me. Thank you. Mr. Deputy, I thank the member for Garden Hills very much. He used to coach me in night league, and so I believe the Garden Hills. The point is, Mr. Deputy, the report was, Mr. Deputy, thank the member for Garden Hills for clearing up, because the report was that they did not travel because of funding. So I thank the honorable member for clearing it up. But the fact still remains,
Order,
Mr. Deputy.
members, order.
Mr. Deputy, please. All right?
Order.
Okay? Mr. Deputy. You need to talk with Grand Bahama. I'm not, Mr. Deputy. What's the point of order? What's the point of order, Mr. Deputy?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakura.
The point of order is that the member misled the parliament. He was corrected. He was correct. I think that the contents of his submission, he admitted that he was wrong and he was correct. He should strike it from. It should be stricken from the records, or he should withdraw his. He should withdraw.
Yeah, hold on.
Mr. I'm on my feet.
I recognize.
Mr. Deputy,
Yeah.
the points of order.
St. Barnabas, I recognize the honorable member for Yamakura. Let him finish.
The point of order, Mr. Deputy, and for the members who constantly spring up like Jack in the Box or their seat of everybody's and doing everybody's submission should appreciate a point of order, a real point of order. The member made a submission. The member made a submission. The good member from St. Barnabas made a submission. He was corrected. He admitted he was wrong, and he kept his words in the book. He should be made to withdraw.
Yep. Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes. Oh, 1 minute. See, now we straying away from the mental health bill, and now we getting into this you say and I say. So please, let's stick to yeah.
When I stood up in reference to the member for Garden Hills, I said thank him for clarity. Yeah. Clarity on the issue. So the Nassau Guardian said.
This is what you all should do on
the Nassau Guardian. So I'm not withdrawing anything because I don't have to withdraw it. Months after qualifying for the FIBA Central Basket Women's Championship in Mexico 2022, the Bahamas Senior Women's National Basketball Team.
The chair recognizes. Hold on.
Mr. Deputy, I'm in the middle of saying something.
Hold on. You can continue. I would give you an opportunity. No. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged Island. 1 minute.
Thank you.
Yeah, calm down.
Thank you for Speaker. Speaker, thank you.
I've ruled. St. Barnabas, I've ruled. No, you can't. St. Barnabas. Yeah, give me a minute, please. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
Mr. Speaker, an allegation was made. The minister responsible clarified it. That should be the end of the story, Mr. Speaker. It's a done matter. The member ought to withdraw the false information he put on the record and refrain.
Can you let him finish,
He should
please?
refrain from putting more false information on the record, Mr. Speaker. And he should.
St. Barnabas, let him finish.
He should be asked to withdraw and move on to the matter at hand, Mr. Deputy. The allegation made, the minister responded, and the story, Mr. Speaker.
Now, let me ask, are you going to withdraw? Are you going to withdraw?
I'm not going to withdraw, and here's why,
Good.
Mr.
Okay,
Deputy.
so now you can continue.
Mr. Deputy, thank you. I'm not going to withdraw. Right?
Okay,
Mr.
continue.
Deputy, Mr. Deputy, I've been accused by the member of misleading the House, and then I started to refute that. Okay, and then I was interrupted rudely by the member for Exuma. So, Mr. Deputy, I would have hoped that the member for Exuma would have gotten up on his feet to talk about why the Grand Bahama deal has failed, but now he wants to play politics. Mr. Deputy.
Yeah. Hold on.
Mr.
Now,
Deputy.
the chair recognized. No, hold on,
Mr.
St. Barnabas.
Deputy, you already recognize me, Mr. Deputy?
Listen. Now I'm recognizing the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged Island. It's getting late, so let's please. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
Mr. Speaker, there's a conventional rule about decency in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. He made certain allegations. The minister responsible has clarified the matter very clearly. The member ought to be respectful to the honorable minister and move on. Mr. Speaker, unless he is prepared to, you've made a ruling, Mr. Speaker, I believe, unless he's prepared to withdraw, you should expunge, Mr. Speaker, because the member is rambling now and he's putting further misleading information on the House.
Yes.
Table
Okay.
of the House.
Now, was it clear enough that?
It was very clear.
I've not been allowed to finish.
Okay, can you finish?
Yamakra said that I misled this House, and now I'm about to show him that I have not misled this House. The Nassau Guardian said, months after qualifying for the FIBA Central Basket Women's Championship, Mexico 2022, the Bahamas senior women's national basketball team is forced to pull out due to a lack of funds. It's forced to pull out due to a lack of funds. They officially, let me finish. They officially withdrew from the tournament on Monday. So I didn't mislead this House. That's what was said. Then the minister, then the member for Garden Hills got up and clarified, and I thanked him for clarifying. So how did I mislead the House?
Okay, can you
How did I
continue?
mislead the House? I didn't come up with it off my own. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I said, Mr. Deputy, I wish the member for Exuma was this ferocious in explaining to the people of Grand Bahama what happened to the Grand Bahama deal. But they don't want to talk about that, Mr. Deputy. All right? Right? No. I debate the people of Grand Bahama. Right?
He's doing a good job. Let him talk.
Mr. Deputy, thank you, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, we talked about the continual mental anguish that the Bahamian people continue to go through. One of the other aspects of the mental anguish that the Bahamian people continue to experience is what's happening with the shanty towns, Mr. Deputy. See, Mr. Deputy, what amazes me, right? What amazes me, every time you get up to talk about something that the government doesn't want to hear, it's an issue. So, right? So, yes, but we're talking about mental health and what's happening with the Bahamian people, right? So, right? So, Mr. Deputy, talking about the mental anguish that Bahamians are feeling related to this shantytown issue. I've sat on my feet. This is not about being xenophobic. This is not about being any anti-group of people. But the Bahamian people have genuine questions and genuine concerns about the illegal immigration problem and the shanty towns, where even members of this government, including North Abaco and South Abaco, talked about the issues that they are facing. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker. No, nobody's talking about anything old. The members for
Order, members,
the
order.
members for North Abaco and South Abaco talked about it, and now they've switched up their mouths on the people of Abaco.
That's misleading. You bring up Abaco now? What happened when
Mr. Deputy, Mr. Deputy, Mr. Deputy, Mr. Deputy, the issue of mental health. The issue of mental health, Mr. Deputy. The issue of mental health impacts and is impacted by every facet of government and every facet of our society. So, on the issues as it relates to the economy, the government has made it more difficult for many Bahamians to take care of their light bill, to eat, and that is a fact. As it relates to crime, there are many people suffering mental anguish because of the level of crime in their communities. The government might not like to hear that, but it is what it is. On the issue of shanty towns, there are many people, Mr. Deputy, many people concerned about that issue, as highlighted by the two members from Abaco, Mr. Deputy. But Mr. Deputy, you know, a number of members, Mr. Deputy, a number of members have talked about different observations that they've made throughout Bahamian society as it relates to persons who are challenged with mental health. And I am in support of this bill. It's a very important bill. You know, the stigma that's associated with persons with mental health challenges, Mr. Deputy, and the stigma is even qualified differently depending on, quite frankly, the color of your skin, right? You know, different labels, you know, and even economics, you know, because the person who was on the lower, the person on no, it's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. The person on the lower, it's the truth in terms of labels that are used. This is what I'm saying, Mr. Deputy. Labels that are used. When I was chairman of the Bahamas Public Parks and Beaches Authority, and I'm sure the member for Mount Moriah, help a lot of people, including PLPs. I'm sure the member for Mount Moriah has probably had to contend with this. There's a gentleman who used to be right almost opposite Home Fabrics, and he would tote trash there every single day. And it was a challenge for the authority constantly because every day we would move the trash and try to get the gentleman some help. But he's there every day, and he brings the trash and he sleeps on top of it. And as was said earlier, it is so difficult to be able to sometimes get assistance for those persons. And we made many attempts to try to get him off the street. But it just shows you again the importance of this legislation, Mr. Deputy. And the truth is, Mr. Deputy, you know, my great grandmother was from Snug Corner, Acklands, Mr. Deputy. And actually the member from Golden Isles talked about it, or used the saying, I would say, said that you're not past anything till you're dead. The reality of it is, Mr. Deputy, please.
Honorable members.
The reality of it is, Mr. Deputy, is that none of us and nobody knows what situations, occurrences in our lives can bring us to a certain fate. That is the reality. That is the reality. We can only be prayerful to Almighty God to keep us of sound mind, to keep us strong through the difficult times in our lives, because there are many different things that cause people to become mentally challenged, Mr. Deputy. And so it was one of the things that I think is vitally important, that especially as men, that we take for granted, you know, especially in our society, sometimes depending on the type of men you hang around with, being expressive can be something that is not necessarily embraced. But as Bahamian men, we have to do our best in our different circles to find out how a brother is doing on a real and profound way, because sometimes those conversations here and there will lead you to find out some challenges that your brother may be having relative to mental challenges and mental challenges. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so, I think the bill is very good. All right, so Mr. Deputy. All right, so Mr. Deputy, as you said, we support this bill. It does not negate the fact that the government is falling down in a number of areas that is causing great anxiety in the minds of the Bahamian people, and bringing many challenges to their lives, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, before I take my seat,
He has zero interest in the ministry you're putting in.
before I take my seat, Mr. Deputy, before I take my seat, Mr. Deputy, I will also Mr. Deputy, a number of taxi drivers, the taxi drivers out by the airport, Mr. Deputy, have a big concern about livery plate drivers who are taking taxi jobs, and I hope it's something that the government can address, Mr. Deputy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member.